Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
The first time ever any...
What are you people?
We're Americans. We are Americans indeed. My name is Vincent. This is Middle America with V.A.N. Sorry, we're not left wing, we're not right wing, we're just right. One of my homies hit me up and said, "Hey man, I'm watching this Vance versus Zelenskyy thing," and I was like, "Ha ha ha." I knew that there was a press conference today, but I had no idea what bro was actually talking about. It wasn't until I read this doozy from President Trump that I then went back and said, "Oh my God, maybe there's something that I need to actually look at and possibly cover." And holy smokes, was I right. I will read you guys the tweet from President Trump very soon. But apparently I am being told by numerous sources that I need to watch the press conference in full. So that is what I am going to do, dear listener. We're going to watch right now a press conference that apparently just got finished between Mr. Donald Trump and Mr. JD Vance. Hot off the presses. Here we go. Hold on. Let me try to find this here. Bad Omens, whatever. That's probably not what the people want to see right now. We are trying to find the download for this video that apparently all of us need to see like immediately. So we've got to look at this real quick because everybody's losing their minds. People going crazy. People saying it was unfair, etc. Here we go, guys. Fed off the presses.
Yes, contact. Yes, but after that, he broke this ceasefire. He killed our people, and he didn't.
Okay, I think they're talking about ceasefire with Putin, where he broke it, which, you know, kind of has, what do you call it, vibes? The, you know, the Israelis, the Netanyahu vibes, where you break the ceasefire so that you can continue to do whatever. But let's check out this discussion and see how it goes.
Exchange prisoners. We signed the exchange of prisoners, but he didn't do it. What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking.
Okay, so it looks like JD asked him to engage in some diplomacy, and I'm assuming the argument is, I mean, it's Putin, he's a liar. How can we enter into diplomacy with him when he's already broken, you know, contracts or covenants or ceasefires or whatever? He's probably right. At the same time, viewer be advised. I mean, this individual has privatized, he's destroyed private media over there. He's nationalized the media, which means they do state-run media. He has unseated anybody that can contradict him in the government. So he's essentially the de facto leader. So we're talking to a guy who's a dictator of his country in a moment of war. I mean, that's just who Zelenskyy is. At the same time, it's very odd for me to see this discussion happening in front of all of us. You know, I kind of feel like the parents arguing in front of the kids. Like, not that I'm anybody's kid, but you see what I'm saying. Anyway, we continue.
About the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come to the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media. Right now, you guys are going.
Whoa! I think it's disrespectful for you to litigate this in front of the media. I mean, I just said that, but holy smokes. It's like, yo, you being disrespectful. Know your role and shut your mouth, as they say in America. Yo, that's crazy. Yo, to all you young boys, all you like teenagers that are like now getting into politics, as entertaining as this is not really like normal. And I'm not saying this like as a judgmental person. I just want you guys to understand, like, you might not think this is a big deal, but this is kind of a big deal. Like, this never really happens in politics, like in especially world politics. This is the first time in my life I've ever seen an exchange like that. Holy smokes. We continue.
Around and forcing conscripts to the front lines because you have manpower problems. You should be thanking the president for trying to bring it into this conflict.
Have you ever been to Ukraine? Did you see what problems we have?
I have been to...
Yo! Oh man, that was like what's his face? The black dude was interviewing Kamala, and he's like, "Yo, when are y'all going to the border?" And Shorty's like, "We've been to the border," and he's like, "You haven't been to the border." I wonder what he says in response to that. Yo, this is crazy, yo. We continue. Holy smokes.
Ukraine, did you see what problems we have?
I have been to. I've actually watched and seen the stories, and I know what happens is you bring people. Okay. Score one for Zelenskyy. Okay, I'm sorry. That was JD Vance's "we've been to the border" moment. That was bad because homeboy was like, "How do you know what's going on? You've never been there. Come once." And Vance's response is, I've seen stories in the news." Yikes. All right, I'm going to stop interrupting, but he did get you there, JD. I'm sorry, bro, but he did get you. He got you good with that one. I didn't know Zelenskyy had it in him. Zelenskyy, why weren't you doing that when the Azov people were like mocking you and telling you they weren't going to stop killing the Donbass people? And you was like, "I'm not a sucker," and they laughed right in your face, bruh. You should have come at them with this kind of energy. You would be in this situation right now. We continue. You bring them on a propaganda tour, Mr. President. Do you disagree that you've had problems bringing people in your military? And do you think that it's respectful to come to the Oval Office of the United States of America and attack the administration that is trying to prevent the destruction of your country?
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You don't
God
know that.
bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering
position to
questions.
dictate that.
That's exactly what
Remember
you're doing.
You're in no position to dictate what we're going to feel. We're going to feel very
You will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel very
I'm
good and very
telling you.
strong.
You will feel influenced.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself to
very-
be in a
from
very
the very
bad position,
beginning
and
of
he
the
happens
war.
to be right about
From
it.
the very beginning of the war.
You're not in a
Mr.
good
Brown,
position.
I
You don't
was
have the
there.
cards right now. With us, you start having
not playing
cards. But
cards.
right now, you don't.
I'm
Yeah,
very
you're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're gambling
I'm
with the
president
lives
of
of
the
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What you
You're
think about?
gambling with
What you
World
think
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country. It's
with
back
all
to you.
respect to you.
Far more than a lot of people said they should
Have
have.
you said thank you once this
A lot
entire
of
meeting?
times.
No, in this
Even
entire meeting,
today.
have you said thank
Even
you?
today.
You went to Pennsylvania and campaigned for the opposition in October. Offer some
Oh my God!
for the United States of America and the president who's trying to save your country.
Oh my God.
That if you will speak very loudly about the war, you
He's
can
not
speak.
speaking loudly. He's not speaking loudly. Your country is
Can I-
in big
can-
trouble.
can I
Wait a
answer?
minute. No,
Can
you've
I
done a lot of
answer?
talking. Your country is in big trouble.
I know.
You're not
I
winning.
know.
You're not winning this.
I-
You have a damn
we-
good chance of
we are
coming out
staying-
okay because of
Mr.
us.
President, we are staying in our country, staying strong from the very beginning of the war. We've been alone, and we are thankful. I said thanks
You haven't
in
been
this
alone.
cabinet.
You
and
haven't been
not only
alone.
in this
We
cabinet.
gave you, through
I
this
said thank
stupid
you.
president, $350 billion.
You
We
voted
gave
for
you
your
military
president.
equipment,
You
and your
voted
men
for
are
your
brave,
president.
but they had to use our military.
What about West?
If you didn't have
You
our
invited
military
me.
equipment,
You invited
if
me
you
to
didn't
speak.
have our military equipment, this war would have been over in 2 weeks.
In 3
okay?
days, I heard it from Putin. In 3 days, This is something
Maybe
new
less.
in 2 weeks. Of course, yes.
It's going to be a very hard thing to do business like this. I tell you.
Again, just say thank you.
I said a lot of times to American people.
Accept that there are disagreements, and let's go litigate those disagreements rather than trying to fight it out in the American media when you're wrong. We know that you're wrong.
But you see, I think it's good for the American people to see what's going on.
I understand, sir.
I think it's
I
very
understand.
important. That's why I kept this going so long. You have to be thankful. You don't have the cards. You're buried there. Your people are dying. You're running low on soldiers. Listen, you're running low on soldiers. It would be a damn good thing. And then you tell us, I don't want a ceasefire. I don't want a ceasefire. I want to go and I want this. Look, if you could get a ceasefire right now, I tell you, you take it so the bullets stop flying and your men stop getting
Of
killed.
course, we want to stop the war.
But you're saying you don't want a
but I
ceasefire.
said to you,
I want a
with
ceasefire
guarantees.
because you'll get a ceasefire faster than an agreement.
Ask our people about ceasefire, what they think.
That wasn't
Doesn't
with
matter for you
me.
what-
That
what
wasn't
this
with me.
means. It
That was
wasn't
with
with
a
you.
guy named Biden who was not a smart person.
This
That
is
was
your-
with
this
that was
is
with
your
Obama.
president. It was your president.
Excuse me. That was with Obama, who gave you sheets, and I gave you javelins.
Yes.
I gave you the javelins to take out all those tanks. Obama gave you sheets. In fact, the statement is Obama gave sheets and Trump gave javelins. You got to be more thankful, because let me tell you, you don't have the cards. With us, you have the cards, but without us, you don't have any cards.
One more question to Mr. Vice President.
I gotta tell y'all, I never seen nothing like that in my life, bro. Okay. All right. So let me try to actually collect my thoughts here. Number one, as I said, Zelenskyy cannot in any way, shape, or form be looked upon as a complete victim here. As I said, this man has nationalized the media. He has unseated, made illegal Peacenik, as well as other political parties that could really challenge his authority, which makes him a de facto dictator or fascist, I guess. I don't know. He has even initiated a religious kind of cleansing campaign against Russian Orthodox Christians in the area. So this man is not an innocent man. On the other hand, his country was invaded. He is in betwixt two great powers that he has no influence in. And I understand that Russia isn't technically a world power, but relatively speaking, having the Russians at your doorstep, in my mind, would qualify absolutely as you dealing with a world power if you are Ukrainian. So I understand, on the other hand, that this man is between a rock and a hard place. Furthermore, not only is he betwixt these two countries who have sort of mutual hostilities toward each other that get hot and cold based on the person who's in office every 4 years. I mean, if you understand what's been going on with the Russians, let's say from 2016, and Americans, first of all, because the Democrats got caught with their pants down in 2016 and underestimated Trump's ability to win, their way of solving that problem was to create Russiagate to get him out of there. Because even before the man had sworn in, you had, I forgot who the black lady, Maxine Waters, whatever her name was, saying, we're not going to let him in. And then you had the whole Russiagate scandal
and all the nonsense that happened with Russiagate, and so like the American mind for 4 years straight had been lied to consistently by our government and the media industrial complex along with it, as well as the social media industrial complex. We had a three-pronged attack to brainwash the American people. And the main goal, obviously, was to destroy Trump. But the byproduct of that, the unintended or maybe intended byproduct of that, was that it created a bunch of Russophobia in the country, to the point where when the Russians actually did invade, by that time in 2020, Americans had been feeding on, or 2022, whenever he invaded, Americans had been on a steady diet of Russophobia and anti-Russian propaganda by the United States, to the point where Nord Stream 2, which was a pipeline that the Russians were basically made from Russia straight to Germany, that was going to revolutionize both of their economies, we destroyed, or Nord Stream 2 was destroyed. To the point where you had Americans reporting that it was Putin who destroyed Nord Stream 2. My point is that there are no innocent people in this discussion between America, Russia, and Ukraine. There are only more approximate interests. Obviously, as an American, my interests are with America first and foremost, and to be honest with you, in total. And so I always looked at the Ukraine-Russia situation and say, how is this going to help my country? And obviously, when I looked into the Ukraine-Russia conflict and I saw that we were the main instigator, playing both sides against the middle because we wanted to weaken Russia. And then our politicians came out and said, hey, we're doing this so that they can fight the Russians over there so we don't have to fight them, or something like that, okay? So the entire thing is awash in corruption, is awash in propaganda from all sides. And so there's no victims here other than the human beings who actually are fighting and killing each other, who are genetically and spiritually connected, as a wise person said, which I agree with, which only compounds the tragedy. It's always a tragedy when human beings kill each other. But when human beings who are literally neighbors and brothers and sisters and share common DNA, strands, etc., there's something even worse about it. It makes me think about what's going on in Chicago and the type of almost phenotypical phenomenology of the Chicago young skinny guy with dreads. And you know, at some level, all those kids are cousins or second cousins of each other. And you know that because they literally have songs called Fuck My Cousin, where they're talking about literally killing their own cousin. There's something uniquely horrible about that kind of a war, dear listener, to be honest with you. And so I saw, because obviously haven't gotten over certain things, obviously, but I relapse from time to time into watching combat, like real combat footage. And there was a famous one that was cycled out about a month ago with a Ukrainian and I think it was a Chechen fighter fighting on the Russian side. And the Ukrainian was a clear conscript, like one of the people that JD Vance was talking about. You know. Really didn't know what he was doing. He was trying to frag into a house. He released his weapon, threw the frag in there, didn't pre-count on the thing, throws it in there. The guy that was hiding there, who's a Chechen, saw that moment of opportunity because dude took his hand off of his weapon, and the Chechen had enough time to get out because there was no count, and so he's got about 3 or 4 seconds. And so long story short, they literally run into each other, and you see this fight take place in the body cam, and it ended up where the Chechen obviously won that altercation by opening the throat of the Ukrainian dude.
And at that point, the Ukrainian dude basically says, well, you won. I'm going to die. Leave me alone. Let me die in peace. And the Chechen guy, instead of finishing him off, says, okay, and he gets off of him. And then the Chechen guy says, I want to go home. And the Ukrainian guy says, I want to go home too. The sky's beautiful. Literally, now they're having this conversation. And the Ukrainian guy, it looks like, goes into his kit, and it looks like he was trying to maybe patch this guy up. And the guy said to him, don't, leave me alone. It's over for me. You won the fight today. You're the greatest fighter in the world. The Chechen looks at him and gives him a nod and says, thank you. And then the guy says, go, it's okay, go. And so I'm looking at these two people sharing this almost instantaneous, simultaneous chain reaction of ultimate inhumanity. One guy's trying to blow another guy up. Another guy takes a piece of broken glass and opens up the guy's throat. Just absolutely inhuman. And literally the next second, let me look at the sky and die in peace. You're a great warrior. I know you're trying to help me. Don't try to help me. It's okay. Let me go. I want to go home. Like, back to back. And I just said, this is just unspeakable evil. And if there's a way for this kind of a conflict to end so that beautiful people like this, who are much better human beings than I am, and I'm still walking around here and beautiful people like that got to go in such a horrible condition. If there's a way to end that kind of conflict, I want to know. And I want the people who are in the conflict to be invested in the good of those people and end the confrontation. Can you trust Putin, Zelenskyy? Obviously not. You cannot trust Putin. Okay? You can't trust him. The fact of the matter is, it's just like my man Stephen Armour said, you're gonna lose 5 provinces, man. You're gonna lose Crimea, you're gonna lose the Donbass. It is what it is. What can you do? I have no idea what that rant had to do with the video that we all just saw, but those are my thoughts. I don't disagree with Trump on this, but I think this is a horrible and damaging way to conduct diplomacy. It's amateur, juvenile. Maybe I'm just old-fashioned. Yeah, I actually stopped as I was actually watching the original video, and I said to the young people, you know, the teenagers who were just coming into political consciousness, that this is not normal. Like, what we just saw is abnormal behavior. That's not normal. And I don't mean that to say, because people say that and they're saying it to judge and say they're above it. I'm not saying I'm above it. I'm saying I'm a relatively young person myself, so this doesn't mean anything per se. But I've been following politics since I've been a child, since Bill Clinton was the president. And I have never in my life seen an interaction like that between heads of state played out in such a broad, brazen, and open way. I don't believe there are any victims sitting down there. I think JD Vance, that it was a low-class move of him to engage this guy this way. But I think that one of the fallouts of the Elon Musk participation is sort of the humiliation of JD Vance, in the sense that I was asking the question, why is JD Vance even the vice president? I'm not under any kind of illusions that Elon can strong-arm Trump in anything. I think he can outsmart him maybe, or convince him of something. I don't believe he can strong-arm him. But for me, I was like, I don't know if there's some constitutional issue to where he couldn't have run with Elon as his vice president. I wouldn't have had a problem with that. But I was like, why is JD Vance even around? And so I think that, you know, that he was feeling that kind of a criticism. I think the guy's still in his 30s, and he's like our age. And I think that this kind of setup, you know, this kind of backdoor, as they say in the hood, it was clearly premeditated on the side of Trump and Vance. I don't think they premeditated like what they were going to say, but I think that they wanted to make a complete fool out of Zelenskyy. And they basically pants this dude in front of the world. I don't know, I know this is going to get a little woo-woo, but I don't feel bad for Zelensky or whatever, but this is now in the zeitgeist. It is now in the collective consciousness. And I do think that there's something that happens in the fabric of the physical world when norms like this are violated with such brazenness for, in my view, no real good reason. I don't disagree with the substance of what Mr. Trump said or Vance, other than the whole "you should be thanking us" thing, like ridiculous. Like, we're going to take their rare earth minerals. I don't care what Mr. whoever says what now. I mean, we're going to take those rare earth minerals. And the fact of the matter is, those Azov dudes don't like Zelensky. They've threatened to murder him. The far right in the Ukraine has threatened to murder him on numerous occasions, even in their press. You know that Mr. Putin would have no problem sending a Spetsnaz team out there to needle this dude out. I wouldn't put it past this administration to send some group out there to have some misfortune happen to Mr. Zelensky. I mean, he's just in a horrible, horrible situation. And I don't think you can treat people like this. And anything good can come of it. As I said, I have no problem with the substance, because the substance is correct. And the facts are, he has no more cards. And his men and women fought valiantly, I suppose. I don't know what valiant is when you're forced to fight and your own government says they're going to kill you. I don't know how you measure valor in those situations. No disrespect to those fighters over there in Ukraine, but they have no cards. Like, you have nothing. Like, you literally have no cards. As Brother Steve has been saying, as my priest says. Problem with these type of statement wars, it ends with nothing being achieved in the spit and blood, and there's a load of fatherless children. Makes me so angry. Yeah, and I've been having this running conversation with my oldest son about how many men are under the ground just because of our ego. It's like, Mr. Zelensky, I get what you're saying, but you have literally no cards left. All you have left are dead Ukrainians, bruh. That's all that's going to happen. We're not going to ever give you air support. Your best chance at air support was Mr. Biden, and even he wouldn't go crazy enough to do that. God forgive me for saying that. Trump is not even going to give you a sandwich, right? So it's like, you have no moves left. Everything now is just based on pure ego. And it's like, I understand it's an uncomfortable position to be in the face of the world, but I just got done watching Netflix has a new series on what happened in the whole Black Hawk Down situation. And we killed 300 to 500 of theirs, injured 1,000 of them, like irreparably. Like, we blew this girl's eyes out. She's walking around with no eyes now for the rest of her life. There was a lot of horrible things that we did to them, and as a result, they killed a couple of our guys and dragged them through the streets, and that made it onto the media. Well, they interviewed the troops that were there. So when the guys got back, they made it out alive. I mean, they were in a meat grinder. They made it out alive. Everybody's kind of happy. Nobody knew that there were still missing people out, and they definitely didn't know how much KIA they were, right? And so all these guys show up at his TV. So all the guys that were just in the city ran to watch what was going on the TV, and they get to see their top. So, I mean, these were Delta operators who were getting dragged through the street, dead, etc., with girls and kids spitting on them and all type of crazy shit. Well, obviously, as men, when you see that, everybody that was like, damn, I can't believe we made it out, praise God, da da da, all these guys loaded up and got juiced up and they were ready to go back out there. The people that were getting dragged through the streets didn't care because they were dead. The only reason them dudes wanted to go back was pure ego. You have no idea. You have no idea. I understand the feeling. And it is rooted in love, loyalty, sort of like the ancient warrior code and chivalry. I promise you I understand all of that. But a lot of that, at the end of the day, comes down to honor. And the scientific term for honor is just plain old ego. And the next day, or whenever it was, Mr. Clinton says, we're going to pack up and go home. And obviously, if you have any of the warrior ethos in your spirit at all as a man, you're going to say, what? They did that? Dragged our operators through the streets? Spit on them? And our response is that we're going to pack up and go home? And he said, yep, we're going to pack up and go home. Now listen, that story has been told in a multitude of different ways, in a multitude of different theaters, and in a multitude of different contexts. And as a young man, every single time that story was told, I quote unquote fell for it. Because the point of that story is to say, I did GAF. If I'm the last person there and I gotta die, folks are gonna pay for that. It's designed to put you in that kind of mindset, and I fell for it every single time. It's not until I watched this documentary where I said, you know, fuck Bill Clinton, but he did the right thing. Because you finally got to hear from Somalis. And you got to hear their perspective on it. And you got to see fighters and what turned them into fighters and how we created them. And how, while I understood the indiscriminate fire and killing women and children, I understood why the Americans felt justified in doing that. Because as an American, I got to see from their perspective why they felt justified in doing what they were doing. Because there were certain rules that they had that we broke that they wouldn't break. And that means nothing to us as much as us not breaking our rules for them didn't mean anything to them, if that makes any sense. And the point was, if we would have stayed, none of those people, those beautiful Somali people, including the fighters, we'd have never heard from them or their children, because we would have massacred that city. We would have killed they would have been stockpiles of dead people. We would have got our lick back, as they say in the hood, but we would have been completely and totally morally wrong. Leaving was the right thing to do. For humanity, not for my male American ego. And it still fucks with me to this day, and I wasn't even there. I was a baby when all that shit was happening. But that's how much it was seared into the mind of the American, war fighter, warrior ethos, whatever. That everybody's hurt by that story to this day. And that story still motivates people to this day to do insane types of shit, of inhumanity or insane acts of bravery. Okay? So my point is, war is hell. It's horrible. I think all the young men and women, and when I say women, I'm talking about the eastern side of Europe is one of the heaviest sex trafficked demographics in the world. And nobody's really talking a lot about this, but these men have died in bunches, leaving behind very young women who are now in the sex trade, the majority of whom are not there voluntarily. And when you say voluntarily, a lot of us are still thinking about consent. Well, what consent can a dirt poor woman in Ukraine who has no man to take care of her and her 2 children, and there is obviously no social safety net, how in the world can she consent to watching her children starve to death? Okay, so the women of Ukraine are the biggest bearers of this little expedition in American foreign policy. When people talk about, oh, they're fighting them over there to stop us from us having to fight them over here, please understand what you're saying. What you're saying is we are gonna use the young men and fathers of Ukraine as battle chattel, as we used to say, and then we're going to create an entire almost country of trafficked women. And when I say women, put an asterisk by it. I had a good friend of mine who just happened to do some work in that area. And I think he went down for one day into a restaurant or something like that. And he didn't get there 5 minutes before they had some girl his daughter's age selling herself to him in that area. And basically, long story short, it was the coolest story ever, because he basically bought the time with her and began to teach her English and was giving her, a shot at something. So if the young men and fathers in the Ukraine can be sacrificed as battle chattel, and if the women and girls of Ukraine, their bodies can be sacrificed as battle chattel, then Mr. Zelenskyy, you could sacrifice your pride and say, you're right, we have no chips at the table, and whatever you guys say, we will sign on to, as long as you can find some way to keep this dude consistently out of my country, and the best people in the world that we have that represent our country don't have to keep dying. I would very, 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 very much like that. Raging Ryu said, I noticed Trump color is here for this event. It was super great the last few TV showings. Yeah, I think you're right. I kind of missed that. But yeah, that's probably right. For more context, after this exchange, Trump actually kicked the Ukrainians out of the White House. Every country in NATO posted a response on X stating that they stand with Ukraine. Well, all those other countries in NATO can go walk the walk. Y'all go ahead and do that. Support Ukraine. I don't know why you guys are supporting Ukraine now. Why aren't you guys putting your weight in instead of letting America and Americans send $350 billion to them folks, so them folks can go get put in a meat grinder like that? If the European NATO allies, to me, are really, really, really very... But yeah, go support them. Look, all I think this is going to do, I don't think these other European NATO nations can suffer the way that the Russians know how to suffer. I think that it is inevitable that Crimea and Donbass are going to be in Russian hands and under Russian control. I think that if the Europeans make this conflict last another 8 to 12 months, I think that Mr. Putin is going to demand more land, because it's going to cost him more money to win, even if he wins. So I do not believe that those European countries are going to do anything significant that we would look at as anything kind of like any real aid and comfort, if that makes any sense. I just don't see it happening. What's up, Mac? Anyone who believes that America sent billions to Ukraine because Biden and co cared about the Ukrainian people is a damn fool. Agree. I hope nobody believes that. As I've told my kids, the UK just, I think in 2018-19, just finished paying us off for our assists toward them in World War II. Like, we don't do anything for anyone. We're an insurance company with an army, someone said. I've been saying this. Noam Chomsky's been saying this. My buddy M. Death Fan, who actually predicted the entire conflict, had been saying this. Ukraine was always going to lose that. I lost a friend for saying it back then. This mess ramped up just based on using my eyes and looking at a map. 100,000% correct. I did the exact same thing. You do not need a background in strategy. You don't even know how to play the name. You don't even need to know how to play the game Risk to have seen that there was no way in the world that Mr. Putin was going to leave without Donbass and Crimea. And the fact of the matter is, after the color revolution, the CIA-inspired color revolution, the Crimeans stated boldly in no uncertain terms, in clear Crimean, Ukrainian, whatever, that they didn't no longer wanted to be part of Ukraine because they didn't want to be dominated by Nazis. Almost a verbatim quote. So, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is, guys. I mean, I don't want to sound cynical about it. As I said, I did not believe the way that Mr. Zelenskyy was treated was honorable. I think it's inexcusable and terrible the way that he was spoken to. I really do. I think it degrades the global conversation. I think it puts the other NATO nations in a very strange kind of bind. And I'm not really a fan of the flavor of telling anybody to basically kiss the ring in front of the stage of the world. Like, I don't feel like we need to do that. It's just not something I'm cool with. What's up, Ian Kirby? Raging Ryu says Europe has given Ukraine 3 times more than the U.S. Oh, well, okay. I mean, I didn't know that, brother. Well, if that's the case, then the Europeans, the Ukrainians should be fine then. Ukrainians should be fine then. Because the other Europeans are going to take care of them. Like, I'm not being sarcastic. But yeah, man. And the other thing is, like, kicking the Ukrainians out is just crazy to me. Like, it's just crazy to me. And like, saying that he was being disrespectful is just loco to me. Like, he was just disagreeing. I mean, I don't know if it, like, I mean, you get educated in negotiation tactics. You know what I'm saying? That's part of the entire intelligence rubric, because you kind of float between that, being an ambassador, things of that nature, and so there's a lot of cross pollination, right? You're supposed to be able to have some negotiation skills, right? And so, I mean, it's rule number 1. This is almost one of the almost rare universals in negotiation, that you never go with the first offer, right? Because that's the entire point of negotiation in the first place. Like, negotiation in like an Eastern European country is a completely different kind of negotiation than, let's say, a Middle Eastern country. If you're perceived as being an American, then the rules are so there's a lot of spoken and unspoken rules, etc., etc. But there are a few rules that are almost like pat, and that's basically the first one is, like, you almost never take the first offer in a negotiation. And so, like, there's a sense in which he's gotta give some pushback initially in order to get the negotiation going, even if he was going to end up agreeing with us. I don't think we have to publicly say, like, he's a horrible person because he's trying to angle out for a decent negotiation so he can recoup some of his dignity. But again, like I said, I don't feel bad for him because, I mean, he's a dictator himself. But I do worry about the collective zeitgeist, which I understand is a little bit woo-woo-y. And I do worry about the psychology of Ukrainian people. Because I think their morale is probably really low right now. And you can go from bad morale to a broken spirit. And it's an ugly thing to see a nation full of broken-spirited people. And so, I just hope that this situation amends itself as soon as possible, because you don't have to agree with the Ukrainians, or agree with this war on the, for the Ukrainian side at all, to see the pathos and the horrible situation that the poor average Ukrainian is in. I'm not going to say civilian, because at this point, their country has made it so that that the word doesn't really mean a lot at this point. I would respect this a lot more if they took the same stance with Netanyahu. Yeah, of course. But the problem is that Netanyahu is in the diametric opposite position. Trump has been saying, hey, you have no cards. Well, I'm sorry, but in the situation with Netanyahu, he's got a lot of cards, because the people with no cards are the Palestinians. Right? And so the Palestinians, he kind of is handling Netanyahu the exact same way, in the sense that Netanyahu is Putin in this situation, and the Palestinian people are Zelenskyy, right? Because he came out last week and told those Palestinian people, no, you guys, I mean, look, the place is destroyed. Why would you want it? Let me and Bibi turn it into, Las Vegas. We'll turn the place into a beautiful place. You'll be absorbed into Jordan and Egypt. You have no national identity anyway. Then the reporter lady said, do they have a right of return? He said, no, they don't have a right of return, right? And so we saw the AI video. Everybody else did. The place is going to turn into a gold-plated, gilded sort of Las Vegas type environment, where nary a Palestinian will be seen anyway, other than in, some sort of janitorial service, which I don't even think they'll allow that to happen. From a technical aspect, you could just tell in the world they're trying to create over there that your average Palestinian would be gentrified from that location anyway. So, I mean, we kind of have this dynamic in Israel-Palestine. It's just that Bibi is Putin. And just like, I mean, think about what we're doing think about what we're saying to the Ukrainians. We're saying, listen, you guys are going to have to give up that $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals too. We want that as payback for the $350 million of experimental / expired military funding we gave you, mostly in the form of those warheads and things of that nature. So I mean, this is, if you really think about it, this has been a pretty consistent ideology from Trump. He and Mr. Putin obviously have some backdoor deal worked out about these rare earth minerals that they're both gonna heist from Ukraine, or maybe they're not gonna heist it together at all. Maybe the deal is Trump says, okay, I'll insure Crimea and Donbass. You leave the rare earth minerals alone. We'll take that, and we'll make sure you guys get Donbass and Crimea, no problem, no, UN censure, blah 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 blah. And I'm sure he went to Bibi and said, hey, we will give you guys, the land there, yada yada yada, as long as you put a Trump Tower up there. But you guys got to cut us into that $500 billion of trillions of cubic feet of natural gas between the West Bank and Gaza. So it seems to be, this is Trump's doctrine. You side with the strongman in the strongman oppressor dynamic. You side with the strongman. You give the strongman what they wanted, and you guarantee some sort of windfall from America. And if you look at the goals of both of those things, remember, we just talked about this. There's close to $500 billion worth of natural gas between Gaza and the West Bank. And there's about $500 billion worth of rare earth minerals over there in Ukraine. So you put that together with both of those conflicts, America makes $1 trillion just between that doctrine with those conflicts. I mean, think about it. That's essentially the pattern on both ways. And really, if you think about it, that's what happened in Syria / Iraq / the Kurds, where we resecured the oil fields and things like that after we drove away ISIS. ISIS had occupied all that stuff. That's how they were financing their little Khalifa. And we went over there and massacred ISIS, as we should have years ago, Obama. We went out there and massacred ISIS and took hold of those oil refineries pretty quickly. And when it was asked if we were going to hand this over to the Kurds so they could finally build a nation for themselves, we said, well, we might sell it to them. We'll give it to them. And, you know, they got to give us a good price. We can make a good deal. But why shouldn't we have it, he says. So it just looks to me like this is the Trump doctrine. This is how we're going to do this shit. Is a $500 billion paycheck payback or a condition for continued support? No, he said later that the 500 billion was some way for us to recoup our 350 billion that we sent to them. Now, I've complained about the 350 billion, but it wasn't like we broke off 350 billion in cash. If you look at a lot of those packages, those were basically weapons that we had that had basically expired, because we have upgraded weapons to the point where we have so many kinds of munitions that there are other munitions that we just needed to offset. And so that's what a lot of that they were getting. And obviously, you know, fighting in that context, what's an expired American munition is more than enough for a lot of people in the world, especially Eastern Europe. And so it's not like we gave them $350 billion. We're offloading this, and now what we're doing is we're coming along and saying, hey, here, you know, get us back our you know, your rare earth minerals. It's a more open, I guess, form of American colonialization and client statery. I mean, this is something we've done over and over again, but we usually do it behind closed doors. It's not really normal for a modern post-Geneva Convention nation to come out and say, this is what we're doing. That's, again, another abnormal thing that Mr. Trump has done. And, you know, I'm honestly swear to you, I'm not judging the moral whatever of it. I'm just saying this is something that's not done. This is something that's rather unique. Zelenskyy doesn't seem to understand the game that's publicly playing along. They're making their backdoor deals, but in public he's being asked to go along with the idea that the goal is peace. Correct, Mac. Agree. Do you think the forced mass displacement of the Palestinians is preferable to the mass slaughter of their people? Of course. I think that that form of ethnic cleansing is better than the ethnic cleansing that the Israelis have done thus far, in the same way that those Jews who took the warning signs carefully and got the hell out of Dodge took part in their own ethnic cleansing of the German country, but it was a better fate than those who ended up in the ashes of the crematorium, obviously. So, I mean, it's important to say that what's happening to the Palestinians is still a form of ethnic cleansing. That's why you had the Trail of Tears. We didn't just kill all the indigenous population that were in America. The Trail of Tears and confining them to reservations was also a form of ethnic cleansing. America's funding extremists in Ukraine for minerals like they funded extremists in the Middle East for oil. That is correct. I think the $5 million price tag for immigrants to come to the U.S. should go to the original peoples of the land. As an indigenous person, I'll take it. I agree, but you and I both know that that's not going to happen, because not only do they not want to make up for what they did, but they also do not want to empower conquered peoples. Lest you guys get any funny ideas. See, this is another one of those things. This is why, like, when I sit back and I listen to, like, not affirmative action, but, you know, reparations conversations about the 40 acres and the mule. It's like, oh, there's a check that needs to be paid, blah, blah, blah. It's like, there's never going to be a situation where an oppressed group of people who a collective national atrocity has happened to is ever going to be empowered by the people that did that to them. They're never going to allow that group of people to collectively rise up and have any sort of self-identity outside of that kind of a position. That's what's going on with reparations. It's not that they can't pay the bill. It's that they can't deal with what would happen to the collective black consciousness if they really actually began to see any sort of autonomy at a generational level for black people. And so the goal for Palestinian people is to crush the spirit of those people. And if those Palestinians accept getting absorbed into Egypt and Jordan as refugees who would just eventually melt into the land without any sort of Palestinian identity after a generation, if they accept that, then the ethnic cleansing of those people will have been completed in a way that's worse than the ethnic cleansing that we did to indigenous people here. Those individuals proved to be unbreakable in the spirit, and even though they're not in a good situation collectively, they're still here collectively after some very unique and multifaceted attempts to erase them. They're still here. And I believe that the Palestinians are built of the same kind of stuff. Good questions. Zelenskyy is going straight to to Valhalla at this point. He will join the ranks of famous people like Osama and Gaddafi. Yeah. It's not for us to say what's better for the Palestinians. For many of them, dying for the land is a better fate than being displaced and losing their identity. Yeah, like I was saying that as you were typing that. I just think as a historical fact. I mean, look, we've had a lot of situations where there have been entire peoples that have been absorbed up and swallowed up by other peoples. And that's not to say that there's some deficiency in the collectivity of those people. It's just a matter of, it's for them to say, I don't want that to happen. I think that those Palestinian people have suffered too much for them to be completely deleted in a generation's time. But it's easy for me to say that as an American, right? Because nobody's going to do that to me or my family. So, I just don't know what those folks are going to do, man. Then we're starting to get those funny ideas. The indigenous nations are getting powerful again here in Oklahoma. The government senses it and are attempting to block what the tribes are doing. Yeah. You get a generation of those people to get together and say, yep, like we had this and this, but we're not that. We're not this anymore. We're not that anymore. People start pooling resources, taking advantage of some of the perks that you get. Yeah, in a generation, shit could go real left for some people in certain states, man, for sure. And look, you don't get to be a minority on the world stage and yet be powerful. Be the most powerful group in the world stage by being nice and moral to people. Right? You're able to accomplish that by being extremely ruthless and salting the fields, as it were. Right? Like, and that's been a hallmark of European war fighting. Is we're gonna make sure that you lose for generations systemically. And when you are a minority on the world stage, these are the kind of tactics that you come up with in order to maintain the kind of power structure. And there's always that fear when you're a minority. I'm talking about any kind of minority. I'm talking about human nature, that the theory of violence that works with minorities is that you have to be more violent than the norm in order just mathematically to even out the man count, right? But then what happens theoretically is that because you had to be inherently more violent and more lethal, the perception of you from the majority is that there's something particularly wrong and violent about you. And so because of that, the aggression against you gets amped up. And in order for you to survive, your aggression then has to get amped up. and you have to do things even more aggressive than you were doing before. And so the cycle continues until the majority is able to completely exterminate you on the grounds that you were just a complete and total savage, right? And so somewhere along the line, there's certain groups of people who find out, you know what, if we're just mega aggressive from the outset and then salt the fields for the future, we're going to have a head start on this violence cycle. And so that's been a lot of world history for the last 350 to 500 years, to be honest with you. We're down to less than 2% of the current population, but we're making progress, and it makes people nervous. Our ways, the seventh generation, will rise up. Some say the Civil War really ended after Chevron went total war on Georgia and the Cardinals. Yeah. I mean, and that's also where the Russians are, because I understand if you take the Ukraine in isolation, then definitely the Russians are the majority. But when you take in the fact that there is the specter of NATO and the U.S. overshadowing them, then they're going to engage that conflict as a minority would. And so now you're seeing that cycle of that theory of violence get worked out. And we already have a mechanism, psychological mechanism, wherein Americans are able to buy very easily the Russians are particularly violent, horrible in the way they conduct themselves, Trump. Just read that there was a Russian state-owned reporter in the Oval that wasn't authorized to be there. How'd they get snuck in? I don't imagine with Ukraine present that would be a difficult feat to accomplish. Remember, folks in the Soviet Union are really excellent at tradecraft. Excellent top-tier tradecraft, folks. So I would think that would be actually a little bit easier to do, considering the Ukrainian visit was happening. All right, guys, 5 minutes. If you got anything else to say, let me put this clock up here. Let me get this clock rolling. We got 5 minutes left. I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. If y'all disagree or whatever, let me know. I'm going to be peacing out at the end of the countdown. The clock should be on the screen now. Yep, there you go. So 5 minutes, guys. We'll be out of here. Again, like, I pretty much agree with everything that JD and Trump said, aside from the whole, you need to grovel to us, you should thank us nonsense. I think that that's ridiculous. But it is not normal to disrespect an entire country like that in broad daylight. And when I say a country, what I mean to say is I didn't like anything that Joe Biden did in his term. And I did believe that Mr. Biden had lost significant control of his cognitive powers. I did believe that. But I tried my best while he was the president, and apparently after, to never poke fun at it at all. And I'm pretty sure I even hesitated to say that he doesn't have his cognitive powers anymore, because the scripture says you shall not speak evil of a ruler of your people. And the other reason is that I am not a radical individualist. I am a collectivist. And for me, the Bible has this concept called federal headship, where you have one person that represents an entire group of people. We kind of have it in Republican, democracies like America, right? Where you have representative government. And so Mr. Biden, for better or worse, is the guy that my country, that the most states wanted, he also won the popular vote. It was ratified at every level. And as a Christian, I believe that God also put Mr. Biden in office. And so because of that, I felt like the office itself deserved respect for all of those reasons, and that to disrespect him would be also to disrespect everybody in America, because the fact of the matter is he is America in the sense that he represents America. And so to disrespect Mr. Zelensky the way that Mr. Zelensky was disrespected is to disrespect all of Ukraine on top of all the BS that the Ukrainians have gone through. And I will say Trump tried to say like, hey, your people fought bravely, etc., because that is something that Trump apparently understands. He understands how men, in the traditional sense of men, are going to take certain kinds of messages. So he tried to smooth it over and say, hey, they fought valiantly or whatever. But at the end of the day, you got up there and pantsed their leader in front of the entire world. You had JD Vance pointing and yelling at him. And then you had Trump saying, you have nothing, you have no cards, you're completely weak, yada, yada, yada. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Like, you completely disrespected this man and by extension his country. And I'm not good with that at all. Everything he said was true as far as the propaganda stuff, as far as the other stuff. Everything they said was absolutely true. But why do that to him in front of everybody? Why? That's the part I don't understand. That's why we have a comedy group called the 1491's All Native Comedy Troupe. Yeah. Trump also lightly shoved Zelensky. I mean, I didn't see that happening, but if he did, it's almost better than allow. I mean, because to me, like, the person I have a real problem with is Vance. Like, you're the vice president. You've been a complete, and I gotta be respectful here, but you've been a complete. You haven't been as much of a factor as most people would expect the vice president to be. I mean, like I said, it was just last week. We had Donald Trump in a seated position while Elon Musk was standing up with his kid running around the Oval like he owned the place, explaining and talking and doing most of the talking. And I just could never stop myself from saying, why the hell, I mean, why is JD Vance the vice president instead of Elon Musk? And to me, this entire thing was a setup and a stunt that got pulled so that JD Vance could reassert himself. I mean, this is the second time now. He did the same thing in Munich. He went out there and he blasted all those people in Munich, which is, again, I think that a lot of the things that he said was right, or a lot of the things that he said were very logical in a way. But why did that have to be said in public, in broad daylight, in front of all these people, when all these people's country is going to be watching how you talk to these people? You got to show respect to everybody. Everybody has to be respected. It's just, especially if they're your ally, even if it's your enemy. Like, this is a common rule, even of the battlefield, that there is respect between fellow pugilists, right? Like, you gotta give that. You can have it out. You guys could square up. You could do all this shit, but you cannot do it. I just saw a video of a cop, and it was this white guy and his kid, and the cop was like, what are you doing out here? You're suspicious, all types of weirdo shit. He was treating him like he was one of us. I was like, what the hell's going on? And like 10 seconds later, this cop slams this dude, to the ground in front of his kid, and he's like, you gonna do this to me in front of my kid? Blah, blah, blah. And I couldn't even watch the rest of the video. Like, I hate that kind of disrespect, because you got some weird power imbalance, man, and you push men to make decisions that in the interim are not smart decisions, because you're encroaching upon their sense of honor and ego. I think even if you're unfairly stronger than your opponent, that you should never push a man's ego for no reason, just to do it to assert your dominance, because dudes end up doing really dumb stuff. Dudes end up really doing really stupid things that are completely against their interest. But once you start activating that ego, who knows? But yeah, to me, it just looked like, and I'm trying to be as respectful to Mr. Vance as I possibly can, but it just looked to me like Mr. Vance is trying to assert himself as some sort of like, you know, unique bulldog or powerhouse or something like that, so that he can eke out his own kind of identity. Because thankfully for him, Elon was born in South Africa, so Elon can't run for president, but Elon has certainly outstripped him, at least at the popular level, because everybody's talking about him and Trump. The only times people have ever said anything with any sort of rapt attention to Mr. JD Vance has been after he pulled the stunt in Munich, and then after he pulled the stunt here. So I don't know how many more iterations of these do we have to go through until Mr. Vance feels like he has kind of eked out an identity in this administration, but it looks to me like that's what's going on. I don't know for sure, but what can you say? Hey, Vin, do you see any current Democrat being groomed for 28? I heard Gavin Newsom. I think that Gavin Newsom would be a giant mistake. I think that if the Republicans have any ability to maintain the economy in any sort of upward trajectory, and we don't have a significant health issue, and I'm saying that because I'm hearing weird stuff about measles or somebody dying of measles, and I know there's going to be a left-wing propaganda, you know, sort of whatever on that. But my point is, if we can maintain any sort of upward trajectory of any significance relative to the economy, and if the Republicans can avoid any major, you know, pandemic type issues, I don't see anybody beating JD Vance in that situation on the Democratic side. I think that the fires and the way that the fires were handled are going to come up, and I think that he showed himself to be pretty incompetent there. Trump's doing a very, very good job of saying that he was the one that turned on the water in LA and took care of the LA fires. He did a really, really good job of that. To be honest with you, I don't know what's true or false about that. I just know that Trump earlier sent out an email like, oh, I was trying to help him with the water earlier, which would have solved the problem, but he didn't want to because he was doing some environmental thing with these fish. And then like 2 weeks later, I saw Trump say, I turned on the water hose or whatever. So I think that Trump has done a pretty good job of making Vance look pretty incompetent and silly and having his priorities out of order, while Trump, you know, flew down on the red, white, and blue cape and turned on the water and you know, used his common sense superpowers to overcome the stupidity of Gavin Newsom, is what it looked like to me. So no. Musk is making bank on his investment. Oh man, Musk is making incredible. I forgot what it was where he was talking about something where it turns out that we're gonna need either SpaceX or something to solve the problem. And I'm like talking to all my Musk friends and being like, we're not seeing a conflict of interest here. Like the entire Musk operation's been a giant conflict of interest, but it was like Tesla or SpaceX or something, or that internet thing he has. It's like the only way to solve the problem is to go with my company. It's like, oh, okay, of course. So yeah, like the non-doctor, non-scientist RFK measles outbreak happens all the time. That's propaganda. That's gaslighting. Yeah, I'm not sure that I believe that measles outbreaks happen all the time. I'm not a virologist, but I think there's been like a confirmed death or two of measles. Now, I don't know of anything that RFK has initiated already for that to be attributable to him. That's the other thing. I'm like, well, what has he done that would make me a measles outbreak this quickly. I mean, didn't he just get affirmed like last week? He got confirmed like last week. So what has he done in a week that it's a serious question. What has he done in a week that makes his measles thing attributable to him? I don't understand that. Somebody clear that up for me. Trump flooded a basin that doesn't connect to Southern California. I get that, but I'm sorry, man. You ask the average voter, they think that Trump turned on the water and all the rest of it. And make no mistake, whoever is the Democratic nominee in 28 is gonna have to flip some folks. I mean, you guys saw that famous thing with Kamala where like she couldn't flip anything, where the guy was like, she's flipped nothing. Like, whoever shows up is gonna have to flip something. I disagree. I think the pendulum will swing hard to the next election. Trump is doing too much too fast. Every action's getting an equal and opposite reaction. Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I just think that between now and 28 is an eternity. I think that Trump has a lot of very, very smart people around him. I think that Trump would be super vulnerable if the election was held right now. Because with the guy's mercurialism, everything is kind of up and down. But I think right now, if he ran, he'd be in serious trouble. The problem is there's so much shit that can happen between now and 2028. And as I said, if that economy is doing anything well in any way, shape, or form, everything's going to be forgiven. Like for example, if people get some sort of stimmy out of this Doge thing, yeah, they did the Ebola thing, yeah, they did the nuclear codes thing, but if people start getting some stimmy out of this, and it gets signed with Doge or with Trump's name on it, they're gonna complete. I just think that, man, if that happens, and there's no, COVID type problem that happens, I think that they've got it in the bag. I really, really do. I really, really do. Especially considering that, like, there's nobody. I think AOC really could do it, man. I really, really do. But as we've seen in that last election thingamajiggy where they elected the 78-year-old with the throat cancer, or esophageal cancer, whatever it is, like, God bless him, like, for real. But that's not a good sign. AOC is the only person right now on the left or on the blue side that I would even consider looking at their platform right now. She's the only one. I know everybody's going to mock me for that. And I know she's already sold out and whatever. But I just saw some AI synthetic sort of election thingy, and it was Vance versus Kamala. And yeah, surprise, surprise, Vance beat her pretty easily. If it's Kamala, it's over with. If it's Gavin Newsom, it's over with. I don't even know, like, who do you have other than AOC on the blue side to even argue? I mean, I guess Bernie's starting to get vocal again. Bernie's starting to get vocal again. So a Bernie AOC ticket, I think a Bernie AOC ticket could cause them a lot of problems, especially if JD Vance has to head it up. Because right now, like, to me, Vance hurt himself today, I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I saw Sabby Sabs and they're like, yeah, give it to him. Just do it to Netanyahu, which I've already said that he is treating Netanyahu in the exact same way that he's treating Putin right now. Yeah. But I think Bernie and AOC could really, really get some stuff done. I really do. Did I see the video of Trump? Yeah, I saw the video of Trump, the AI Trump Gaza thing. I got into a big fight over it with my main people because they're having a protest. I think they're having a protest right now, actually, as we speak. I don't know. It's today, Saturday, but they're having a protest because Janet Mills defied our president. Let me not be sarcastic. Janet Mills defied our president, and she's allowing trans people to compete in sports. I'm pretty sure. I swear to God, there's literally probably 4 trans people in the entire state that are competing in sports at the post puberty level, and so that is getting all the Christians in the local area to do a protest. I'm like, so we're protesting over that, and not a word about these fucking Palestinians, and not a word about Trump's disgusting Gaza video. Not a word. But you motherfuckers are really out here hitting the streets, and it's sunny Florida down here, but they had to do some plowing and shit in the last couple of days up there. But we're protesting the 4 trans people in sports. That's what the Christians are doing up there. So, people were upset at me, and you're full of hate and all the rest of it. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's not for me to judge. I don't know if I'm full of hate or not. I hate what's happening to those people, but I hate our apathy towards the lives of Palestinians people more than I hate anything else, I guess. But yeah, I saw it. Unfortunately. Bernie is 83, no way. That would put him at 87. Isn't Trump 87 right now? Isn't Trump 87 right now? I mean, I don't know. I do think Bernie could do it, actually. I'm pretty sure Trump is like 87, 88 years old. He still looks like he's got that piss and vinegar shit going on. And I do think that AOC, him an AOC ticket would really, really do it. And I think it'd be one of those things where it's like, get Bernie as the legacy candidate or whatever, but we can kind of break norms ourselves and say, hey, we're going to have AOC really run shop. Bernie kind of knows how to pull the levers because he's been around for 40, 50 years, but we're really going to have AOC run shop, and you could really have, at some level, 3 AOC terms. And I think if we have 3 terms of AOC, she's going to have one of those 3 terms with a majority in the Senate, and we can really get some Medicare for all style things passed. Hopefully, I'll have abortion fixed by then, because right after that's fixed, and Medicare for all is going to be my next one. That would be the best of all possible worlds for me, I think. Oh shit, 78. Nah, that's okay. Well, that's Trump would lead office at 82. What's going on, Kai? Trump leaves office at... Oh, okay, that's not... Trump would lead office at 82. Bernie is 83 right now. Yeah, I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing it, man. I don't know, bro, because that presidential race is a motherfucker, and JD is gonna be young and spry and not even in his mid 40s. I just think right now he's not a very popular vice president. I mean, Kamala started off pretty terrible as well. Because the first thing he did was use her as a human shield with the border. Shout out to Jill Biden for that. I mean, that was very well played, Jill Biden. Yeah, I mean, I don't see him as a no doubter. As the president, I think right now he's pretty vulnerable unless he does something to ingratiate himself. I mean, if you look at Kamala, she never really ingratiated herself to not America, just even the Democratic side. I mean, she was kind of kept in the background, and she never really, I don't know, man. Maybe Hillary? I don't know. Maybe, AOC does it by herself. Maybe it's AOC and the Shapiro guy. I was watching Ezra Klein with this other guy. He was like, I'm pretty sure he was like one of the reps in Massachusetts. And I thought he was the most intelligent, brilliant kind of law theorist I'd ever seen do an interview. Almost to the point where I was like, I don't understand half of what this guy is saying, but he really has clearly thought this through. And so I'd almost vote for that guy just by default. But I think for the country itself, I don't see him necessarily being a number one, but he would be somebody that you would have as chief of staff or something huge where he gets to do a lot of work. Because the guy he's absolutely brilliant. I'll probably try to look up his name. Really brilliant dude. And I think AOC and him would be a pretty strong ticket as well. After the Biden situation, the Dems would be super dumb to put up another 80-something-year-old candidate. Vin, did you see the email I got sent to you? No, not yet. Democrats right now don't have a name, but hell, Barack Obama in 2004 wasn't anyone. Yeah, but everybody knew after that speech at the DNC that he was next. I mean, there's just nobody that's inspiring anybody. But I'm sorry. I think AOC would have been an inspirational figure if she would have been allowed to, what the hell is Hakeem Jeffries doing? Like, the Democrats need to shake something up. I mean, I don't know enough. Like, can you primary Hakeem Jeffries and get him out of there and get AOC in there? I saw a video. I mean, I'll have to look at it. It says AOC, like, embarrasses Elon or whatever. Like, she's out here vocally taking on Elon on the floor. Like, the Democrats should do something weird, man, and be like, yo, listen, Jeffries isn't the guy. And no, we're not going to, have some white dude go and replace Jeffries. But here's AOC. And let her just, start firing and hoping something sticks, like they got to do something. And I think, people have almost like a vendetta against AOC. But I don't see how, like, not utilizing her advantages is good for the Democratic Party. I missed the super chat. Applejack, I hope you're still here. Everyone always decried the system. You need to tear it down. Once Trump burns it, they rush to defend. Does not a phoenix rise from the ashes? You can't vote us out of this. Miss me with Bernie. You can't vote us out of it. Well, if I can't vote us out of it, then how do we get out of it? I'm probably wrong about Bernie. I think all you guys are right. I mean, 83. And I just think even if Bernie's capable of doing it, I just think we're going to be once bitten, twice shy about our experience with Biden. But what I'll say about Biden is that Biden was really losing it in 2019. Like, during the primaries, he was losing it. You know what I'm saying? And I think if we had a rigorous primary season, that Bernie would be able to demonstrate whether or not he was all there or not. But I think you guys are probably right. We're going to be just once bitten, twice shy with Biden. And people are going to say, nah, you guys told us he was good before. But I would respond by saying, yeah, but I mean, what the hell? Like, we all saw that he was screwed up. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you allowed yourself, I mean, this is kind of where I'm at. I'm not going to lie to y'all. Like, if you allowed yourself to get gaslit by the Joe Biden hustle, I'm sorry, man, that's you. Like, I was watching David Pakman a couple weeks ago, and it was somebody, he was like, I just don't believe your what did he say? I forgot what he said, but it was like, your propaganda about his supposed mental problems. I'm like, what are you guys talking about? Like, dude is, what? And I was trying to be as respectful as absolutely possible with Biden. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if you held on, and I know, I mean, there's some of you that you just quote, Democrat propaganda no matter what happens. You're all there on Russiagate stuff. You're all there on the other stuff. You just go to the next thing that the Democratic media tells you to believe. But like, I think if we had a very rigorous primary season, Bernie would show us whether or not he was strong enough to, to handle it. But I don't know. The specter of Biden, you guys, might be too much. It might be too much. Honestly, I don't think the Dems will nominate another female unless they're trying to lose. I hate to say it, but we don't seem to like electing females. I'm going to have to punt on that. I don't think that that's true. I just think that it's kind of like the Joy Reid situation. Like, I do think that I think that her race has a lot to do with the people mocking her as far as being gone. But her ratings absolutely crashed and burned and never recovered. And that was just that. And Hillary Clinton was horribly unpopular. She was not trustworthy. Black men in particular did not enthusiastically support her. And she also had the horrible misfortune, 3 times, really, of running into generational talents. Well, twice. She ran into Barack Hussein Obama. I think if she would have came out ahead in the Democratic primaries in 2004, I think she would have mopped the floor with it wasn't Herman Cain, it was Dean, or whoever it was, the war guy. McCain. I think she'd have wiped the floor with McCain if she would have been able to get past Obama. But Obama is a generational talent. And then she ran into another generational talent with Trump. And I think the same thing about Kamala. Kamala didn't even have and honestly, and if you look at Hillary didn't really beat Bernie. You saw what happened with the Hillary-Bernie situation, right? So Hillary didn't earn her spot, but at least Hillary fought in the ring and had an argument that said, I won, I should have been the nominee. Whereas Kamala was just shoved on us. So I don't really think that there's enough data. I don't think there's enough data to say that we wouldn't vote for a woman. I think if we had a proper woman with a proper, runway. The other thing too is Kamala had a 3-month runway. I think if we had a right female candidate that wasn't like horribly flawed, who could get through a Democratic primary on her own merits, I think, especially this version of JD Vance, I think this version of JD Vance is vulnerable and could absolutely get crushed, in my opinion, by an AOC type figure. I think the Dems will play it safe and groom your standard middle-aged white male because everything else doesn't seem to work. I don't know. Hillary couldn't step out of her comfort zone and campaign that was a stronghold. She was a bad campaigner. Yeah, she was a bad campaigner, but I just don't think anybody's beaten Donald Trump. Ever. I just don't. And I think that I think Kamala Harris having a 3-month runway was just ridiculous. And I also think Kamala Harris is just a horrible, probably the worst candidate. Leah, you may not agree with this, but Kamala Harris is probably the worst candidate of our lifetime. And I'm not just talking about likability or competency as far as like being able to articulate the left-wing vision or the blue vision. Just in the way she even spent money on her campaign. Not going on the Rogan show, which again, you know, people say it was a mistake for her not to go on the Rogan show, and I don't think that was a mistake. I think she didn't go on the Rogan show because she couldn't. And everybody knew she couldn't. David Pakman has a show still. Wasn't he crying? Yeah, I mean, David Pakman bounced back, bro. He, all those resistance breadtube guys are doing really, really well. I think you're going to see TYT, like, shift back. Their pendulum is going to shift back because they're going to want some of those views and subs, bruh. Yeah, I think, especially Cenk. I think you're going to see Cenk go back to what they were. You get out on the streets, you shut the system down, and you take back your country. How long have you voted? Which time worked? Yeah, what does that mean? What does it mean going to the streets? Now keep in mind, Applejack, I have no problem going out into the streets. Like, for example, once again, Janet Mills is back up in the media. Like we went head up with Janet Mills, right? So like I have no problem with going out in the streets. I just don't know what you mean by going out in the streets. What does that entail? Like we went out in the streets in 2020, right? Like in 2020 we went out in the streets and we, in my opinion, experienced a net loss from going out in the streets in 2020. 2020 has been marshaled to justify all types of government overreach. So what exactly are you talking about, Applejack? Because I'm not sure what you think is gonna happen. What about Oprah or Michelle Obama? I think an Obama AOC ticket would be very, very good. It depends on who JD has as a running mate. Outside of Hillary's circle, she was not very liked. True. Very true. Trump said he doesn't see Vance as his successor. I thought he said the opposite. Already thinking of the next election is the mess that big there? Well, I'm thinking mostly on like who the Democrats have as a successor, because it's got to get done now, whoever it is. Like, I don't understand why the Democrats aren't saying by the end of the first fiscal presidential year, we need to have our candidate so that we can start campaigning for 3 years. Like, I think the Democrats should move their primary and all that stuff now, or maybe have a 2-year primary, utilize social media, instead of doing all this whining about how powerless they are. Utilize social media, have a 2-year like marathon primary, right? And now you have your person identified, and then you get 2.5, maybe 3 years to just push your candidate, and JD will be the incumbent, but so you get a head start on this person. The person would be battle tested and would have some major victories and quotables, and then you would have Fox News and the rest of these places that would then be forced to cover it because it would be the biggest news in the world. It would be actual news that you would be able to have to compete with whatever stunt Donald Trump is going to pull, because it would be something new. Like, I would say, we're going to have an emergency meeting. First thing we're going to do is we're going to figure out who's going to replace Jeffries, right? That's going to create a bunch of news. Got to get everybody focused on the blue side of the aisle. And no matter what Trump does, they would kind of neutralize each other. I think that would be very big news to see something as fascinating as Jeffries fighting for his life and then losing to like an AOC. And then the next phase is going to be, all right, we're going to have a year-long primary. Like that, not the left, but the Democrats would be able to just dominate the news cycle and actually be able to compete with Trump to where Trump would have to react to them. Instead, the left or the Democrats haven't figured out any way to operate with Trump in power without just being in a completely reactionary position. If the Dems did this, they would be able to dominate the news cycle. Trump would have to react to them, and there would be a lot of really great moments where somebody is going to separate themselves as an actual leader, somebody with some actual moxie, and you pair AOC with whoever that is, whether AOC is that person and she emerges, or somebody else emerges and you put AOC as the other person. I really think you can make shit happen. That's what I would do. I don't see any other way for these people to work. Like, it's one of the things that's very fascinating to me is that it seems to me that Trump has futurized running for office, while the Democrats, who I just perceived for whatever reason to be the younger party, to still be doing things the old-fashioned way, and are being led by septa octogenarians. Unfortunately, I mean, I don't want to be disrespectful to my elders, but subhanallah, I mean, Jeffries took that AIPAC money and is on camera explaining how to bring black people on board with Zionism. Until the Democrats get off that, they're going to struggle with geographics. That's what I'm talking with progressives. I agree. I think they're going to struggle with a lot of people. I mean, look, I haven't seen Ben Shapiro have a post on X where the first 15 comments are not interspersed with a lot of people giving him the finger somehow, some way. Like, I think he's permanently harmed himself. And I think that leaves a lot of vulnerability relative to the Israel situation. I can't picture Trump's ego allowing him to support anyone other than himself. Why are we so sure he's not going to run again? I think that if Trump can feel that he has done something to solidify his legacy as the GOAT, where he has done something to fundamentally change the fabric of America, I think he'll kind of tie a bow on it and bow out. Because at the end of the day, if you have to run again, there's also the possibility that you could lose. Because he did lose in 2020, right? So I think you could kind of use Trump's ego against him in that situation, actually, to say, okay, you did this, you recovered the economy, maybe he bans abortion. That's going to make you, for better or worse, it's going to make you a generational president who's done something crazy. Remember, Abraham Lincoln wasn't very popular for freeing the slaves, right? What ended up happening after his freeing of the slaves was that eventually the country conformed to that law, and because we conformed to that law, now the narrative is freeing the slaves was a good thing. It was not a good thing at the time. It was not something that was universally looked upon in the North, definitely not the South, as something that was like universally looked upon as great, but it did etch him in history forever. And so I think if he does something like, for example, gets rid of abortion finally and completely, and he recovered the economy,
then he's going to be a definitional president in American history. And at that point, there's nothing else to do. And the only thing you can do is lose, and particularly lose to a girl almost. I think he'll pack it in. That's what I think. I don't think that a constitutional amendment to allow him to run again is going to pass. If it does, that means 2/3 of Americans really want him in there. That's also true. That's also true. That's a very, very good point. That is a very good point. Oof. UAW, Amazon, Washington, get out the streets, stop the economy like the truckers. General strike and stop playing their game, stop voting. Well, answer my 2020 question. Because I think 2020 was you got to say that 2020 was hitting the streets, right? And my argument is that 2020 was a net negative for any kind of movement, because it resulted in a bunch of people getting abused. But the right-wingers successfully were able to put a narrative over there that nobody was arrested during the 2020 uprisings, during the George Floyd uprising. Nobody was arrested. Everybody was just allowed to destroy the streets. Like, we've got pictures of people getting shot in the face. We've got pictures of, 100-pound little girls getting slammed by 6'2" police officers. We've got pictures of old dudes getting slammed to the ground with blood coming out of their heads, and the stormtroopers walking right by them and not helping the guy at all. And then Trump going on Twitter and then blaming the guy who got his head cracked open. So we all saw that play out in broad daylight. And yet, when people talk about the 2020 uprisings, they'd say people were allowed to burn down cities and nothing happened to them, right? Like, so to me, us hitting the streets in 2020 resulted in a net negative for any sort of movement. So I'm not sure how not voting but hitting the streets is going to result in anything lastingly positive. That's my argument. Trump came in hot, and if he keeps anything close to this pace with major moves, he's going to be historical president. I agree. Trump isn't going to ban abortions. He supports abortions, asks his 16 mistresses. Yeah, that doesn't matter. Trump doesn't believe that any of these laws are going to apply to him. All that's going to matter is a narrative that gets told about him. And honestly, he'll be put in a Lincoln category, especially by his base. I mean, I'll certainly put him there because I've devoted my entire life to protecting the unborn. So if he does that, that'll be a big, big, giant ego thing for him. And that'll be the most successful finesse of a person's sinful nature that the evangelical church in America has ever been able to constitute. So the idea that Trump would enact laws that are consistent with his own behavior, I think, is crazy. I don't think that he thinks that way at all. JLB, I guarantee you, third term project is either just a meme or a fringe weirdos. Also, whatever happened to the big scary Project 2025? Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of pieces of Project 2025 that are being implemented. Right? Am I missing something here? Hopefully just the aesthetics were sick, but it's just something I saw on the internet from some other country. Not sure. It was a constitutional amendment after FDR was president for 4 terms that made only 2 terms possible after that. The only way out of that is a two-third votes of the states. Yeah. And if that happens, then Trump would have done something like massive, like turn the economy into the best economy we've seen in 60 years or something like that. And if that's the case, then all bets are off. If he does something really, really good with the economy for 4 years consistently, then they'll probably have him in. I wouldn't be surprised to see a third Trump term if he does something ridiculous and consistent with the economy.
And to be honest with you, I wouldn't care. I mean, if 2/3 of us wanted it, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. If abortion gets banned for regular people, what rich people do is what they did before Roe. They'll go to Puerto Rico or Europe to get what they want. They'll go to Canada. They'll go to Canada, or some Planned Parenthood type thing will set up shop in Mexico, 10 minutes into the border or something like that, in the middle of some like spa vacation area. They're going to find some way to capitalize on it like you wouldn't believe. Right there in Canada, right there in Mexico, no problemo. You're in the north side, they're going to do that. You south side or west side, then they'll have some place in Mexico, Tijuana, whatever. It'll be a wonderful experience. You'll have your abortion, then they'll put you in a nice little spa for a week, and then you can enjoy whatever. And the spa is going to be great for your body, depending on the gestational limit. Blah blah blah. Watch. You know how that go. You know how that go. If Trump has the popularity to get a freaking constitutional amendment to get a third term, then he deserves one. I agree. That kind of movement would have to be a people-oriented movement. I mean, honestly, it would have to be the people saying, you need to do this. We're going to push for this, and you need to commit to doing this. Like, it would be that kind of thing. And if that happened, then, like I said, how could anybody stand against it? I mean, that's what the country wants. At the end of the day, it's the economy's stupid. And if Trump does something significant with the economy, or the economy is consistently growing for 4 years, and they look at JD Vance and say, you're not even in your mid-40s, like, we don't know if you're going to be able to, like, keep this going the way we want it. And then they look at the blue side and they go, you guys are just going to fuck it up. Then, yeah, it's very, very possible that you could see an amendment like that. It'd be insane, but it is what it is. It is what it is. What's up, Angel Sin? Good to see you, baby. Good to see you. Yeah, I've just been like openly speculating on who the Democrats could have as a candidate to either meet Vance in the arena or meet Trump in the arena. I don't know. Right now, a lot of the resistance type looks silly, pretending that the majority of the country is against what they voted for, and they're fighting for the will of the people. Yeah, I mean, I think people have been put off by Elon, and it kind of looks like Trump's strategy is to let Elon talk himself into unpopularity and self-edit. If that's what he's doing, then he's brilliant. If this is where Trump is at, is this where Trump is at right now? My beloved state of Oklahoma is deep red. Yeah. After 1 month, inflation is worse, unemployment is worse, stock market took a downturn, consumer confidence is worse, this geopolitical chaos, and the tariffs, I don't see how the economy will improve. Right. And he just passed a giant tax cut that we're almost going to certainly have to eat into Medicaid or Medicare to fund. So I don't know if he thinks that this rare earth mineral slash the Gaza $500 million is going to offset that. I don't know if that's his strategy. But yeah, right now the economy was the main thing, and the economy is eggs are still pretty bad. I don't know how long he's going to get a pass for that. Watching Democratic people protesting budget cuts in the streets and acting like having to go back to work is the Third Reich is incredibly absurd. Yeah, well, having to answer the 5 questions, like, what do you do all day? Yeah, I thought that was pretty hilarious, for sure. Yeah, but Trump will declare himself fully responsible for the lowering of egg price. Well, I mean, you've got to get the egg prices lowered first. I mean, they're up. They're higher. So I don't know. True price of eggs. The price of eggs is up largely because of the bird flu. That's not going to be a drama forever. I get it, but I mean, the bird flu was also a price indicator during the election, but I mean, the Trump propaganda machine really swallowed that up. That really wasn't part of the narrative. But I know maybe Trump voters are now more amenable to the bird flu thing. It looks like he's been kind of getting away with it. The tariffs thing didn't turn out the way that he ran on it, though. I mean, pretty much every Maeda can testify to this because he had been talking about this like pretty much since Trump started threatening the tariffs. Every single economist that I've seen, granted, I've only seen them from one source, but every single economist that I've seen has said that the tariffs were going to harm the country economically in the short run, and in order for us to see any real benefit from that, it would either have to be that the countries fold immediately, or America takes a real gut punch financially for a year or two, which nobody thought that we had the endurance for, considering the price of eggs was such a central issue during the election. So I understand the avian flu is the reason for the eggs to a degree. Like, I get that, but I just think like the tariffs thing hasn't been working. Elon's kind of inability to have any sort of self-awareness has taken. It's interesting because it's like you have this bad feeling because things are not improving for you, but you're able to channel that negative emotion toward Elon because he's so brazen and bizarre and strange and not very good at human interaction. And so like you can kind of use him as a human shield in the way that Biden used Kamala as a human shield. So I mean, I just don't know. There's so many possibilities and loops and things like that when it comes to Trump. There are no easy, obvious solutions. I think he's absolutely vulnerable. I also think that if things go the way he wants them to go, that he can leverage a lot of shit real quick and get some real quick wins. Like if this Doge thing happens to where you get 3 to 5K because of Doge, and they bring back some sort of child tax credit with Vance's name on it, like, yeah, I mean, shit's gonna, things are gonna turn around for Trump, and people are gonna forgive him for whatever's going on with the economy right now. Like, it's a really complex situation. There's a lot of what ifs, as Mech pointed out, he's come out hot and heavy, like everybody says, my first 100 days, like, dude is really on that shit. Like, he's really like, yo. So, like, if he's able to maintain this pace and kind of hit all of his goals intact, I think there's going to be a short memory and a lot of forgiveness for the bad economy. I think Mech is really right about that. Elon has definitely taken a lot of the stuff as a fall guy. Trump is talking about things that will take some time to show results. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, Trump surrounds himself with extremely intelligent people. I have always thought that this kind of like impulse that we have of like saying everybody we don't like is stupid is, number one, so childish, but has absolutely no strategic value in any way, shape, or form. It does you no good to state that your greatest enemy is an idiot. It's much better to state that your greatest enemy is a genius than to say that he's an idiot. But I think that Trump has, I think Steve Bannon, you know, Mr. Flood the Zone, is a brilliant strategist. And I think that he might be telling Trump, let this dude say whatever he wants, let this man hang himself. Now, look, if these guys are really, really locked in, the three of them have this planned. But I don't think that there's enough. I respect the hell out of those guys. I don't think there's enough foresight and ingenuity for all three of them to plan this way. But I do see Steve Bannon pulling Trump aside and saying, let this guy do this, because for the first couple months, maybe year, we're not going to be able to deliver on like a lot of these, you know, whatever. So as long as everybody has a giant distraction while we're getting this shit right, leave him. I could definitely see that happening, and that just goes to show Trump's self-awareness and intelligence if that's in fact what is happening. I don't know. You know, I don't think anybody knows. Elon is okay, yep. And then Angelson says, mind you, economists are against tariffs because most of them are dogmatists regarding free trade. Tariffs would likely, this is a good angle. This is why I always ask Angelson and stuff. Tariffs would likely hurt in the beginning, but ultimately succeed in reindustrializing in the long term, which is what all those economists were saying. They were saying either Canada and Mexico and China bow the knee immediately and just acquiesce to whatever we say without some sort of like get back, or it only benefits us if we can hold on and endure a little bit pain in the short term to really fundamentally change things in the long term, right? So there's that. And I don't know, maybe their policy is going to be, you know what? Yeah, let's eat this horrible situation for a year, but then, like, you know, we can kind of punt the football a little bit by a stimmy, right? So it's like, yo, your eggs are up higher, but look, you got a stimmy and it's got my name on it, right? Like that worked pretty good the last time too. Like the Obama checks, I mean the Trump checks went really, really good, and then, you know, Biden was like, I'm going to take the high road and not put my name on stimmy checks. So like everybody forgot that they got stimmy checks under Biden. They did, but his name wasn't on it, so he didn't get the credit. Like how Republicans manipulate the media is incredible. Like, you got to tip your hat to them. You got to tip your hat to them. It's amazing that in 2025, Trump pushes ideas that are 19th century McKinley tariffs in a different time. Besides that, President did get assassinated. I don't know why they're doing a McKinley callback. Well, maybe they've crunched some numbers somewhere and really believe that they're going to be able to, you know, fundamentally change our economy after a year. I voted for Trump, but I find the Elon situation disturbing. I didn't vote for an oligarchy. The dude is getting more unstable by the day. Yeah, and if you voted for Trump, you have to hope that this Elon thing is a plan, that it's there to kind of distract us from the economic situation, because they are planning on us hurting for a year to fundamentally change everything for us going forward. And that is, I'm not putting that out of their purview, because remember, Elon, I don't know if you guys remember this, but Elon said that it was going to hurt in the beginning. So this whole thing might be a ruse. The clown show that is Elon, and the clown show that we just saw where JD did that in Munich and then just did it in the Oval. That all might just be smoke and mirrors. So we're not looking at the price of eggs, because if they can ride this for another 7 to 8 months, they really could be in the clear. I mean, I'm telling you, like, that really could be a theory. It could be a thought. It could be what they're doing. And Trump is around some incredible people, and Trump himself is a great manipulator of human beings. It's possible that that could truly be the strategy. I don't know. In the event tariffs are going to work, they're a plan that will bring manufacturing back to America and encourage hiring and developing here. There's no way that shows results in 30 days. Yeah, that's right. Okay, Vin, maybe there is some Project 2025 stuff going down, but have you seen the hashtag Trump and Krasnov stuff? It's literally the left-wing version of the Red Scare. Yeah, I mean, I think the Democrats, the left, whatever you want to call them, have like almost permanently destroyed any sort of anti-Trump credibility in my eyes just because of Russiagate. I'm never going to forget Russiagate. I'm never going to let it go. And the fact that all these operators in the media and things like that haven't come clean with it is the reason I won't let it go. I would have no problem with saying, hey, it's in the past, it is what it is, if they admitted that they were wrong about Russiagate, and if they admitted that their desire for Trump, metastasized into something that it shouldn't have, and, we're going to learn from it and all that. If they said that shit, then cool, I'd bury it. But the fact that they will never do that means that I'm never going to forget it, because it tells me that it was worth it to y'all, and y'all would do it again if you had a chance to do it again. So I agree with you. I don't take a lot of like the ominous threats about Trump from the left very seriously right now at all. It could be the problem is when you start the terrorists doing a bad economy, it hurts the consumer more than agree. I just think they're banking on Elon and Vance being a good enough distraction, so that we're not really talking about the economy right now. Like we started this video talking about the stunt that got pulled in the Oval today. So I mean, think about it. I feel you on the idea, Mech says. I feel you on the idea of the stimulus is to help people crunch through the hard stuff. Biden promised a $2,000 check. It never happened. Correct. Just putting this out there that the experts have proven to be highly trustworthy as of late. Also true. People are giving way too much benefit of the doubt to these ghouls. I do think they're ghouls to a degree, but I also think they're extremely intelligent ghouls. And I'm not saying that because they're nice. I'm saying that because I don't want to get taken off guard by anything. The left loves the Red Scare. They've been Cold War Russiagating the situation since the last Trump presidency. That cannot be denied. And that's why I still have a very hard time believing in any sort of alarmist rhetoric coming from that group of people. I just have a very hard time believing anything that they say, because they just looked us in the face and lied to us, y'all, for 6-7 years and then never held anybody accountable. Nobody got held accountable for it. It's insane. Maybe the free market is a byproduct problem when it comes to the unattended discouragement of U.S. manufacturing in lieu to pay less foreign goods for the consumers to buy. It's a gamble, man. You know what I'm saying? It looks like that's what you're saying to me. Are we giving the benefit of the doubt, or are we just discussing potential outcomes of their actions? Yeah, I mean, this man managed to get himself reelected. Only one other president has done it the way that he's done it. And in light of, 50 litigated cases or counts or whatever against him in total, one of which is essentially calling him a actual abuser. I mean, for him to come back, win the popular vote, I'm sorry, but that takes a certain kind of genius. That takes a lot of personal genius and genius of the people around him. I don't care what anybody says. You can say what you want. The man is a genius. And so I actually will give them the benefit of the doubt, not just the outcome of their actions, but if they've got a kernel of an idea, I'm going to say, okay, you were able to pull something off that I just didn't see. And then like to get Leah's vote, like, that's just crazy to me, because she's such a detailed, picayune thinker. I completely understand the vote as well, but that's just brilliant politicking, man. I'm just sorry it is. And honestly, too, the tack they took with Kamala, they could have really hurt themselves by really emphasizing the race-sex thing with her. And they didn't bite on it. And I think that also demonstrates a certain degree of genius. I mean, they're just very, very smart, intelligent people. They're very forward-thinking people. They think ahead of everybody. All I kept hearing about was Kamala Harris's insane ground game. And I'm sorry, but I had a real thought that that was going to have a massive effect, because if you guys remember this, in 16, the weak finish at the end for Hillary was really put front and center as to one of the reasons that she lost. But they had figured out that between that election and the last election, the online stuff, the Rogan, the Aiden Ross stuff was a lot better, and all the ground game stuff was just superfluous. So they have been advanced ahead. They out technologized the left. I mean, they sleep on them if you want. Call them dumb and stupid if you want. Do it. Just don't see how it's helping anything. All right, guys. To be fair, Kamala was a yeah, Ryu, she was the worst, bro. She was absolutely horrible. The Biden contingency did everything they could to undermine her and make her look terrible. As I said, they used her as a human shield the entire time relative to the border, ingeniously so. It's clear that Biden didn't want to bow out, and she had 107 days to run. And she's not a talented, she doesn't have the instincts, obviously. She couldn't hold a conversation with Joe Rogan for 3 hours. And that's the ultimate reason. I don't care what Rogan gives. I don't care what reason she gives. The ultimate reason she did not end up on the Rogan show was not about anything other than the fact that he did not want a 1 hour controlled discussion. He wanted a standard Rogan discussion, and Kamala, as well as her handlers, knew very well that if that happened, it would be an absolute disaster for her. Okay, so agree. Raging Ryu says Shorty was a disaster. God bless Kamala Harris. She was our vice president, but she was an absolutely, I cannot think of a worse candidate and the worst situation for the worst candidate to be in. Like, you have to be in a Barack Obama, Donald Trump type figure to even win, in my opinion, with only a 107-day runway. But those two guys could do it because they've got the charisma for it. Both of them are very good at speaking extemporaneously, and both are very good at not saying anything when they don't want to say anything, but use a lot of words. I don't see anybody else being able to pull off what people were asking Kamala to pull off. And as Ryu said, she was already a disaster and already so vulnerable for so many different reasons. The Trump campaign led the way for the Republican Party to de-emphasize, 100% true, to de-emphasize the racist culture war tactics they'd led with before and focus on making life better in a meaningful way for the American people. Yeah, they did. They did. And they found a way to truly, truly, truly speak the language of Joe Public by going on Joe Rogan. I mean, you just... I don't see the value in trying to poo-poo that. You've got people on the left side that can do that. Even if it's not realistic for Bernie to run, I do think it's realistic to get rid of Hakeem Jeffries, to do some sort of emergency thing to get him out of there and create some media. I do think that that's doable. They got to do something, because right now they're in a reactionary situation and they're not controlling the narrative right now. What's going on with the crime rates after the mass deportations? Well, I don't know if those have been published yet. I personally believe that I think I saw something in the news where it was like illegal interdictions have been cut by 90%, right? That in itself is if that's true, that in and of itself is a 90% reduction in crime in a certain context, because going over the border illegally is a crime, like objectively speaking. So I did see that, and that was not on a like a liberal, like a right wing website. And it is also true that there's now hotlines being flooded with people trying to figure out how to self deport, which is not something that's happened in a large sense in ever, I think, in this country. So the immigrant stuff is working for Trump, I think. Tariffs will not solve the labor dilemma. You cannot compete with China paying people $20 an hour. If you pay workers more, products will get more expensive. Even if you can bring back manufacturing economy 101. Yeah, China leverages just the immense size of their population to great effect in the job market, for sure. See his questions. Are things different? I am not on. I got assigned for a year to to Houston, which is pretty intuitive for border work. But I haven't been there in 5-6 years, so I don't know. I can't tell you. You know what I'm saying? I just know if I was doing that job, I'd be a lot busier now than I was back then. So I'm just genuinely not sure. All right, guys. I said 5 minutes, and I stayed for another 95 minutes. I'm gonna have to go now. Thank you guys for all the discussion. This was a really good discussion. As I said, I probably agree with almost everything that Vance and Trump said to Mr. Zelenskyy. I just do not agree with I don't agree with you should be grateful and be thankful to us. Ridiculous. We're about to grape the Ukrainians' land for all their rare earth minerals. So I don't believe anybody needs to grovel to us on camera if we give them anything, because you can be assured that there's always going to be some sort of American get back for that. But as far as like the essence and the substance of what they're saying, Zelenskyy, I've said it from the beginning, you got to give up Crimea, you got to give up Donbass. It is what it is. The other European countries are all talking shit now. They say they're going to support you. All right, let's see them do it. Let's see it happen. Let's see what happens in the next 6 months. I disagree that should have been litigated in broad daylight in front of the entire world, basically putting the having JD Vance, who is not even 40. I don't think he's even 40 years old yet. I'm not sure. Somebody fact check me. But regardless, somebody that young to dishonor and disrespect somebody. And you know, JD Vance had his we've been to the border moment when Zelenskyy said, what the hell, you never even been there one time? And he goes, well, I have seen videos of you guys conscripting people, and I've read the stories, right? Like, okay. Just completely, totally disrespectful. Just looked to me like JD Vance might be feeling a bit insecure and trying to establish himself and trying to establish some sort of identity in this sort of like love triangle that's going on right now between him, Elon, and the president. You know, God forgive me for saying it that way, because I don't want to disrespect our leaders, but it just looks to me like he has been doing this because he's trying to eke out his masculinity and alpha maleality, you know, because Elon has been overshadowing him. So there you go. All right, guys. Much love to all you beautiful people. Shout out to the big homie Angel Sin. Shout out to Leah Axelrod, My Wisdom. Things getting more expensive is less of an issue, and reversing the effects of offshoring would lead to a higher quality of life, I think. That's what he said. People talk about how good the economy is due to free trade. Yeah, I mean, Angel Sin knows what he's talking about. Vance just turned 40, subhanAllah. Ugh. Ugh. Is Americans working 0 jobs and doing OnlyFans and fentanyl a better option to you? Yeah, it's not a better option to me for sure. For sure. I don't want any Americans doing OnlyFans, none of that shit. Best case scenario, reversing the effects of offshore would take over a decade. I agree with that too. As far as like completely reversing them, but if we're hurting for 2 years, if we really feel the pain for 2 years, but then things start getting better exponentially en route to a decade from now, I think America will forgive them. I just do. All right, guys. Love your neighbor. Take care of each other. Middle America, we are the media. Be nice to a Ukrainian today, I guess, is the way we can love our neighbor. Just be nice to people. Even let's say this is a takeaway. Even if you have people buy the junk and your interlocutor doesn't have any cards, they know you don't have any cards, and we know they don't have any cards. So there's no reason for us to like spell it out. We can work to protect each other's dignity. You know, there's a song we used to sing in church, and it was always very interesting. It says, "We'll guard each other's dignity and protect each other's pride." And, you know, in a church context, pride is usually a bad thing. But in this case, it was a beautiful thought. So that's going to be the thought for the day, okay, with everybody. Dead ass serious, seriously. Let's guard each other's dignity and protect each other's pride. If if the interlocutor, the person you're talking to, even if they're a child, they have no cards, don't lord it over them and let everybody know that you're the one in power and the person you're talking to is not the one in power. Give respect and honor and dignity to everybody, no matter how old they are, no matter how young they are, no matter how racist they are, no matter how fill in the blank they are. If you're in a situation where you are in complete and total power over another person, there is no need to let that person and the entire world know that you have that power. The real power would be to lift that person up in full view of everybody, so that when they're done talking to you, they can walk out with their head up and their shoulders back a little bit. Seriously. I hope God puts you all in that position, and I don't care who you are or who you follow, who you believe in or who you don't believe in. All of us know that that's a better way of interacting with another human being, right? And, you know, namaste, right? Okay. So I'm going to challenge all of us to be those kinds of people for everybody in our life in the next 48 to 72 hours. I'm hoping specifically that God will send somebody in your life in that situation, and that you will remember to give them that pride and that dignity because they got done talking to you. Much love to all you beautiful people. Applejack, I think, you know, let's talk more on and offline about setting up this, what do you call it, electoral debate thing. Maybe Mech and Leah have some thoughts too on it. All right, guys, much love to all y'all. Then out.